welcome to Breakfast with the Heathen. I am your favorite heathen, Mike Smithgall, the unelected mayor of Atheistville. So welcome. And it's been a little while since I've had a chance to talk to you. I actually went on a vacation throughout Asia. I guess it was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I just came back on the 19th of December. So a good, almost an entire month, I think 27 days. So I went to 3 different locations in Thailand and then decided to go to Hong Kong and then made my way from Hong Kong over to Tokyo and came from Tokyo back to Chicago. So a lot of planes. I think I counted the other day. I think it was 8 different flights. And I don't even know how many hotels and restaurants and everything else. But a really good trip. If you ever get a chance to go to Asia, definitely take it. I went there last year. My son is in the Navy in Tokyo, so I went to see him specifically. But I also have a friend of mine that I've known Greg for 20 years, I guess. He lives in Thailand now. He and I are friends from Florida, but he moved to Thailand, I guess, in 2020. So I visited him there. And while I was there, I thought, well, I want to go to Hong Kong. I've never been to Hong Kong and really didn't know much about it other than, I guess, what we all know. But I thought, let me swing over to Hong Kong. So I booked a ticket, went to Hong Kong for a few days, loved it. So I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to go to Asia, go to Bangkok. I love Bangkok. I really, really like Bangkok. I could see myself living there. Hong Kong was really cool. I want to go back. And Tokyo is one of the best cities in the world. So I highly recommend those. If you're going to go to Thailand, of course, there's all kinds of beautiful beaches. I did go to Pattaya, which is where my friend lives. He and his girlfriend live there, but Pattaya is okay. It's kind of like being on spring break. But there's plenty of islands in Thailand that are just beautiful. So if you ever get that chance, go. But let's go ahead and jump into our Sunday morning. And I always say, go ahead and get yourself some coffee, a donut, a croissant, some toast, whatever it is you maybe eat on a Sunday morning. And let's just settle in here. I'm going to start out here with this person's name is Soft Victory 5642. And the title of their question, would an evangelical Christian basically shun a sibling that married a same-sex partner? Now, obviously, that's very subjective. I mean, it depends on the sibling, of course, right? But they go on to say, would a person in an evangelical sect of Christianity refuse to be around a sibling any longer if that sibling married a same-sex partner? I know they refused, so this must have happened. I know they refused to go to the sibling's wedding, someone they used to be very close to and loved very much, which was, of course, very painful. But then after the wedding, would they then cut off all relationship? Okay, so this is clearly coming from this person's experience. Obviously, I would think they're talking about themselves. I would say yes, it definitely does happen. I wouldn't say it happens every single time, but unfortunately, it happens a lot. And I'm going to go one step further and say it's not just evangelicals. Evangelicals maybe apply a different level of justification for that. But I'm going to give you my personal experience, and I probably have given this on this show before. When my daughter was 17 years old, I guess, she came out. I think she maybe came out originally as bi, but basically was lesbian. So she's in high school. She's maybe a junior, I guess, in high school, 16 years old. Sophomore, junior, I can't remember exactly the year, but nonetheless, so she came out to us. Now, when you come out to my wife and I, you've come out to the 2 easiest people possibly. I was in theater, so when I say I knew a lot of gay people, I knew a lot of gay people because theater is one of those industries where there's a large group of gay people, an LGBTQ community there, and I obviously have no problem with it. My wife has no problem with it. Lots of our friends, the people we hung out with, the people I did shows with, we went to lunch with and brunches and went to parties. So to come out to us, you picked the right parents. But my daughter came out to us. Everything was fine. We were like, okay, yeah, we kind of saw that coming. It wasn't that terribly surprising. But because she came out and she realized it was a safe space, we gave her absolutely zero grief. I would get up sometimes in the morning to go to work and there'd be a kid sleeping on the couch. I'm like, okay, well, who's this kid? Like, well, his parents kicked him out because he came out as gay, which would infuriate me. I think I've told this story before, but this is going back to this person's thing here. I grew up with, this is in the South, so we were in Florida at the time where we pretty much, grew up. And that Christianity, that evangelical side of Christianity, did not allow those parents to reconcile the fact that their child has come out as gay, and they had to choose. And very often they chose Bible over child, and it would infuriate me. I get mad and annoyed thinking about it right now. This is, gosh, Brittany's 36 years old. So it's 20 years ago, and it still annoys me because these poor kids are 16 years old and they get kicked out of the house. What are they supposed to do? So on this person's question, would a sibling stop talking to them? Unfortunately, it could be very, very possible. And it's terrible, and it's sad, and there's no call for it. There's no reason for it. But I've seen it happen enough times that it doesn't even shock me. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't shock me. And to those people that are putting up with that, I try to just make them realize, you can't choose your family, but you can choose to not be around them. If I'm born into a family and my brother is one way that I don't like, and he doesn't like me, there's nothing I can do about him being my brother, but I'm not forced to have to spend time with him, right? And I'm not saying about this, my brother. I'm just saying in this case, they're talking about their siblings. You don't have to spend time with them. Find your tribe. Find the people that are going to support you. It's a long life, right? Why waste time with people that are going to be cruel to you? I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. All right, next question from Financial Vehicle 134. I always love these names. Financial Vehicle 134. So this person says, I was going to upload a screenshot of this email. Now, keep in mind, email. But they weren't able to do it. But here is word for word. So this is the email they got at work. And the headline or the subject, this is not work-related. This is faith-based. And if you are not faith-based, you do not need to read further. Okay, that's a little ominous right there. And if you feel the need to type that out, stop. If you're at work, stop. Stop right there. All that. This is not work-related. Okay, well, obviously, you're probably heading down the wrong road right there. Then they say, this is faith-based. Stop right there. You're already wrong. And if you are not of faith, you do not need to read further. Could you be more divisive right there? But anyways, and then they go on, apparently in the body of the email, first and foremost, this is not work-related. Again, you've said this twice. This is for Christ followers. Okay, so here's the problem. Before I even go any further, we all know the problem right there. If you've just sent an email out saying twice that this is not work-related, and you've sent it in your work email, you are wrong. And if you say this is for Christ followers, well, if I get it, I'm an atheist. If, my friend Ira Goldstein gets it, he's probably Jewish. And maybe my friend Raj Adhikari, he gets it, and he is Hindu. Why would you send anything like this? This drives me insane. This need that Christians have sometimes, and not all Christians, but you know where I'm going, they've got to reach out and convert somebody. Anyway, so this is for Christ followers. If you are not of Jesus Christ faith, you do not have to read this. You're so wrong. This email is not directed to anyone who is of another faith, religion. I am no way trying to make you feel uncomfortable or sway your... Well, yes, you are. Come on. Of course you are. That you do not need to keep this email or reply to it. I mean, could they follow themselves anymore saying what it is not intended to do, which you know full well it is intended to do? They go on to say, that being said, if you are in any way interested in gaining a better understanding of what it means to follow Jesus Christ, you are more than welcome. I would be more than happy to share my testimony with you, and you can point you to other resources that will better equip to answer any questions you may have. Stop it. Oh my goodness. Just stop it. Then they go on to describe some sort of testimony. At work? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? At work? I would be annoyed if I got that just in my personal email because, again, it's like, stop it. I live in the United States. There is not a day of my life that has gone by that I wasn't aware that Jesus was out there someplace, right? If you grew up in the United States, you know who Jesus is, you know who God is, you know what the Bible is, you know all this. Having Karen from accounting reaching out to me via my email at work and trying to give me a testimony isn't making it any better for me. If I wasn't convinced before I came to work today, I'm not going to be convinced now because Karen decides to reach out to me. I don't understand that at all. I know people say, well, it's in the Bible. I should go out there and proselytize. Well, there's also parts in the Bible where it says you should not do that. You should preach, go into your closet and pray by yourself. I mean, there's also parts of the Bible. I think it's Matthew 6:6. What is it? It's when you pray, go into your room and close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Okay, so do that. Pray by yourself. There's no reason to reach out to people at work and bug people under the guise of, you're not trying to convince anybody. I'm just going to write this whole email and send it to the entire company to tell them how great Jesus is. Just stop it. Come on. That really annoys me to no end. This drives me insane. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Poppy Bile says, how do I stop believing? It says, I've considered myself an atheist for about a decade now, but I've never fully stopped believing. Okay, so let's stop right there before we go further. You've considered yourself an atheist for about a decade, but you've never fully stopped believing. So those are bit in conflict. And let's read a little further and see where he's going with this. But that's a little bit of a conflicting statement. I logically don't believe there is a God, but my nightmares and personal experience always puts me back in a spot where I feel like there's a God out there just waiting for me to break and give in to his will. I would be lying if I said there isn't a part of me that believes I am going to hell. Well, goodness gracious. Okay, so a little bit to unpack there. So I get the gist of where he's going with that. He's probably using some terms that I find conflicting. So the gist of where he's going there is a bit of a hedge your bets kind of thing, right? And I think probably most people, as they've gone through this journey of what we call deconstructing, because again, we're all born as atheists and we get indoctrinated into whatever religion. And if you deconstruct that, because someone constructed your religion and now we're deconstructing. So we're going back to our original state, which is atheism. But depending on how severe that indoctrination was and how severely you were sort of into it, it's a bit challenging to come out of it. And for almost all of us, certainly in the Christian religion does a carrot and a stick, right? There's you're going to go to heaven and everything will be great and you'll see your grandparents and life will be perfect and you won't have any pains, or the fact that you're poor won't affect you. All these things that you don't like about your life, they will all be solved. That's the carrot, right? The stick is, of course, and if you don't worship, then you're going to go to hell and burn for all eternity. Okay. It's pretty extreme on both sides, right? Everything in your life could be possibly perfect, and or everything about your life will be immensely painful and torturous for all eternity. So again, two completely ridiculous extremes, but that stick part's scary for a lot of people when they're trying to come out of that religion. We're kind of deconstructing and going back down to, again, a state of atheism where it's like, I don't think I believe in a God. It's not been proven to me. I'm going to live my life as if there is none. But what if I'm wrong? I'm going to go to hell. Well, for someone like me, when I look at this sort of stuff, I look at it as, 2 + 2 is 4. I'm not worried about it being only 3. 2 + 2 is 4 to me. I'm fairly well convinced that 2 + 2 is 4. I'm not concerning myself with being 3 or 5. I'm very assured of my belief in that. And belief I'm using with air quotes, but I'm sure of my opinion on that. I'm sure of how my perspective is on that I do not believe that there is a God because none has been proven to me. I'm willing to think about it. But at this point in my life, I've had so few pieces of evidence that even plausible, let alone probable, that there's not a God. In my perspective, there's just not a God. So I'm not fearful of a hell either, because they're two sides of the same exact coin. But when you're first coming out of that and you're still struggling with it, that belief is very tough. I would encourage this person to talk to more people like me, not because I'm anything special, but more people that have this perspective and maybe a little bit further down the road, because we've gone through this process. And there's a point where you just let it go. It's kind of like having an old girlfriend. Eventually, you just stop wondering whatever happened to Linda. You're just like, oh yeah, I forgot I even dated her or whatever. You moved on, and just part of your past. And if you think about it, there's all kinds of thoughts there, but you really Linda's never on your mind anymore. You don't think about what you used to do, how you guys used to be together. You don't think about the breakup. It's just literally sort of ancient history. It's very similar to me. I don't think about when I was a believer. It just doesn't have any impact on my life, which means I also don't think about what it would mean to go to hell, because it doesn't exist in my perspective. I don't believe in a hell. I'm not worried about going there. And this person's not quite there yet. Even though they said for 10 years, I'd probably argue that for 10 years, they haven't been an atheist. They've been going through an agnostic journey, and they're not quite atheist yet, or they wouldn't say in that very next sentence, but I've never fully stopped believing. I mean, if you're still believing, then you're not really an atheist. You can say I haven't given up a possibility of it. That's fine. I mean, it's like people come to you and say, okay, I have a pet dragon named Reggie living in my garage. Oh, okay. I mean, probably not, but if you want to prove to me that you have a pet dragon named Reggie living in your garage, okay, I'm willing to take a look at it, but I'm not going to spend any time stressing over your pet dragon, right? Same thing with this guy. So yeah, it's interesting. The stop believing part, it takes a while. And it's a journey, and if they're not going to really put any effort into it, and that's not a knock on them. I mean, if they just want to get up every day and just sort of live their life and not think too much about one way or the other, that's fine. They want to hold out a little bit of that. Okay. I don't have a big problem with that. If it becomes a problem in the sense that they become obsessed with it, or it cripples some of their decisions because they don't know which way God would approve, well, okay. Then maybe talk about that. And I'm obviously willing to talk. So who is this? Poppy Bile? Poppy Bile, if you hear this and you want to reach out to me, please do. I'd be happy to give you my 2 cents on that. Okay, so this one, I am a bit torn on it, and you'll see why in a second. So this is RIP WKBAK. I don't know what that means. Rip Wick back. So I just visited the Vatican today. Well, I visited the Vatican as well. It's beautiful. But here they go. I said, I'm having a bit of a rant. So today I visited the Vatican, and they went to a mass, and they walked through the giant temple and blah, 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 blah. But I couldn't help but look at things and go, how much medicine for sick or the food for the poor is that column of marble worth? How many MRI machines, or how many new space exploration, or understand our universe? It just blows my mind at all the wasted wealth at every turn. They're begging for money. Okay. So, and they go on to sort of along that rant. I get it. I do. And I think I'm a bit struggling with this, to be honest with you. I think the Vatican is beautiful. Some of the art in there is amazing. Sistine Chapel is amazing. If you head over to France and you go to Notre Dame, it's beautiful. My wife and I went there a couple times before it burned. I haven't been back since it burned, and they've rebuilt it basically. But it's amazing. To me, it's an amazing feat of man's architecture, man's artistic ability. I don't have to put anything more into it. I know where the money came from. I get it. But it's amazing. Now, could, say, modern day religion spend their money differently? Yes. So here's where I'm conflicted. I understand what the person's saying, but I do look at ancient things like this, like the Vatican or Notre Dame. Notre Dame was starting to be built like in 1300. I mean, could you say, well, look at all the money they spent on the pyramids? You could, but they're 6,000 years old. I mean, am I going to get too pissy about some of the art that's in the Vatican? Not really. And I understand where they're coming from, and I have some sympathy for that. Now, What I would be more annoyed by is when they pass the plate in any church, Christian or any church, Catholic church, Baptist church, Episcopal church, whatever. When they pass the plate and that money goes into having a basketball stadium for a church, yeah, that's you're doing that right now. We should know better now. We're more aware of the people that are suffering now. We know the cost of healthcare now, and we know the homelessness. We know the people that are in need. And if you're paying for a basketball stadium and $100,000 light show, this is not even an exaggeration. That is a very common number. $100,000 worth of lights and sound for a religious ceremony. You've missed the mark. You've gone astray. Nobody needs that. Nobody. And they're saying, well, it makes more people come in. Who cares? Who freaking cares? So do I want the Vatican to sell all their art? Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. But it's already there. It's already there. It's been there for hundreds of years. It's established. It's tomorrow's money that bothers me more. It's the money that they get tomorrow that they waste on things that do not help humanity. That bothers me more. So RIP WKBAK, I understand it. And again, I have some sympathy for it, but I try to put it into perspective of, what happened then versus what happens now. There's only so many ills and sins of the past that we can fix. And some things just are the way they are. Dismantling the Vatican and selling it piece by piece like a big yard sale, it's probably never going to happen anyways. And if it did, it's really not going to solve the world's ills. It might give a better image, and I understand why that would be valuable, but I would much rather have tomorrow's collection plate be used more effectively to help the community and help humanity, and not just prop up a preacher. When the preacher's car is the most expensive car in the parking lot, there's a problem. I don't care what you say, that's a problem. It shouldn't be that way. All right, so the next question is from The Secular. Can secular community fill the space religion once occupied? And they go on to say, many of us moved away from religion after years of questioning, but the need for belonging and shared purpose and moral connection doesn't always disappear with beliefs. 100% agree with them. And I said, do you think that secular communities can genuinely fill that space? I do, and we'll talk about it in a moment. Or do most people find their connections through other means like friendships, online circles, activism? So let's talk about that for a second. I've mentioned this, I'm sure, on this show before, and I'll give you a prime example. So today is the Sunday after Christmas. I came back on the 19th from my trip to Asia. My wife and I had discussed it right before I left, or even while I was gone, that we should offer our home to the people in our atheist community here in Chicago for any of them that do not have anywhere to go. Meaning that maybe they're just, it's not like they don't have friends or family, but maybe they don't have friends or family in town. Or maybe they used to be in a religious sort of group, and that's what they would do. They'd spend Sunday going to mass or whatever the case may be, and they don't really have a place to go, or they just don't know that many people. Maybe they're new to town. We actually had some immigrants come over that have come in from different countries. So we said, let's open our house to the people that might want to take us up on that. And if nobody comes, that's fine. My wife and my daughter and I will have a Christmas, just the three of us. In fact, my daughter brought a friend of hers that she's known for years. They went to school together in Florida. But we actually ended up getting, I think we had maybe 8 people, I think, in addition to my daughter, her friend, and my wife and I. So we had 12 people at the house. We made ham and we made turkey and green bean casserole and all the kind of stuff you would expect to have. And I mentioned 2 of them were from Puerto Rico. One guy was from Turkey, 3 of them from Iran, which was nice. In fact, and my wife being born in the Philippines, at one point I realized after my daughter had left, like, I'm the only white person in this whole house, which was kind of funny. Like, I'm the minority here, But the reason we did that, again, these people were all from our atheist group, and they all actually, the 4 of them came from a Muslim background. The people from Puerto Rico obviously came from a Catholic background. It's very, obviously, almost dominant Catholic in Puerto Rico. My wife was Catholic, being Filipino. I was raised Episcopal. None of us go to church now. And we had a great Christmas day, just hanging out and talking and joking and laughing, and we listen to music. I think those kind of things can be done, but atheists need to try harder to provide spaces like that. And I've mentioned this as well. We have a group here in Chicago, which is, again, where these people came from. And we first started doing meetups 10 years ago. I didn't really appreciate how much people needed that social aspect because they had given that up when they left church. I didn't really fully get that. And at some point it did dawn on me. I'm like, oh, I get it now. So I've talked to many atheists and like, why would I want to join a bunch of atheists to hang out? You don't have to. But other people like, oh, thank goodness, I finally have some people I can talk to about my journey, or I can just be free to speak, or I don't have to tell anybody where I'm going to church because I'm not, and nobody here cares. So I think atheists could do a better job at that. And we don't do agenda-driven meetings. We literally get together and hang out at a bar, or go to brunch, or have a party at the beach, or come to my house for a party, just purely social to kind of fill that void. But what are the other things they mentioned now? Like friendships and online circles and activism. Yes, all of that. Hobbies. I am a big proponent of joining clubs and groups and hobbies that involve other people, especially in a big city like Chicago. It's one of those weird things. People join a big city and they think, oh, there should be people everywhere and you'll meet friends. Well, you have to go out and do something that puts you in a close proximity in a friendly and open environment. Church does that for a lot of people. But so does a board game club, or so does a softball league, or so does a pottery class. Anything where you can spend time with a shared interest is the way to go on that. So yeah, they don't have to be atheists. That's fine. And you don't have to hang out with just atheists. That's okay. My thing is just find people to hang out with. If you have a shared interest, then that's going to be good enough. And that's where you'll find friendships, and you'll meet people. And I told someone the other day, it's like, if you like cats, go volunteer at a cat rescue place. The people that work there are gonna love cats. They're gonna like you. You're gonna like them. Eventually, you're gonna like, hey, let's go to lunch. And someone's gonna go to lunch with you, and that's how it starts. But you have to put that effort in. Going to church doesn't require that same effort. All you have to do is go to church, and they force feed you all these different groups. And if you want to participate in those, they're very easy. They're already set up for you. Outside of that, you have to actually put a little bit more effort in yourself. No one's going to knock on your door and say, hey, we'd like to be your friend. It just doesn't work that way. All right. So this is one that's always interested me. So this is Impossible Wind 615. And it says, original sin is so unbelievably flawed. Right there, I agree with whatever they're about to say because it is. It's absolutely flawed. So they go on to say, so God created Adam and Eve not knowing anything. That's exactly it, right? So Christians argue that Adam and Eve walked with God, but that doesn't change the fact that Adam and Eve were so innocent, they weren't aware that they were naked. We all know that. That's part of the story, that they ate from the apple and then they saw their nakedness and they were ashamed. But we could argue that their cognitive skills were like one of a toddler's. So when God puts a tree in the garden and says, eat everything but that tree or else you'll die, the Bible isn't really clear if Adam and Eve even knew what death was. How would they? They've never seen anybody die. They are the only two people on the planet, which is its own little problem, but let's go with that. Do they know what death is? Do they know what it is to be wrong? If they're so innocent that they've never done anything wrong, do they even know the ramifications of being wrong? They don't know what being naked even is, in terms of any kind of shame around it. And they also certainly couldn't have fathomed that making this one mistake would have doomed people forever. It's just, the whole story is so silly and ridiculous. Something else someone mentioned the other day was like, everybody blames Eve, but Adam stood right there. He was right there with it. This is the most gullible idiot person on the planet, apparently, because he's not blamed at all for taking the apple that she offers. He also knows it's wrong, but he says, oh, okay, well, I guess Eve's handing me an apple. I guess she knows better than me. So he gets off scot-free, and Eve is the one we trash for all eternity now for screwing up everything. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous story. And I know you have to come up with sometimes metaphors and stories and things to make a point, but goodness gracious, could someone have thought through the plot holes on that story? It's just insane. And of course, we all know the very classic question, which is, if Adam and Eve have two boys and they get married, who do these boys marry? If Adam and Eve are the only two people on the planet and everything springs from those two people, who did they marry? I don't really know the answer to that. I really don't. I know I've heard various things, but that's the story, right? That there's only two people on the planet. They had to, to the Cain and Abel specifically, and those two got married to whom? I guess they made another Adam and Eve on, one garden over. I don't know. The whole story is just insane. We'll drop it there because it's a silly, silly story. So Responsible Ring 6362 asks, has anybody ever felt this way? Sometimes I feel like I second guess my choices for deconstructing because I think to myself, how could some of the smartest people I know, and even some of the smartest people on the internet, which is kind of funny, believe that the Bible or Christianity in its entirety? Like, how is it so easy for me to think critically and see right through all this, and they just don't? And that's a good question. And I think this is something people are guilty on both sides of conflating belief or non-belief with intelligence. I'm probably guilty of it myself because sometimes you do see things like I just talked about, the Adam and Eve story. Like, that's so obviously flawed. It's so obviously flawed that it's insane you could possibly believe it. The story of Jonah and the whale, so obviously flawed. You have to jump through all kinds of hoops to make that even possibly make sense. And even then, it doesn't make any sense. Any reasonable, intelligent person should see that story and say, well, okay, maybe you'll say it's not literal. Maybe you'll take it as some sort of a metaphor for something else. Okay, fine, I'll go with that. But for the people that say, no, that's literal. It really happened. Boy, it's hard to not say you're being dumb. Right? Because it seems so obviously that it's not true. It doesn't happen. It wouldn't work. Methuselah didn't live to be 900 years old. Just story after story after story throughout the Bible, they're just impossible, right? There wasn't a talking snake with arms and legs, which is also weird. But that doesn't mean the person's stupid, right? It's easy to say that. It's easy to get in the heat of the moment. Or it's easy for them, meaning people that are believers, to say that I'm stupid because obviously as you look around and you see a tree and you see a cat and you see a monkey, then it's clear that there must be a God. I get this one, I feel like every day. And it's always the same argument. If you see a pen laying on your desk, you know that something created it. So when you look at a tree, you know something created it. So you must be stupid if you don't see that. Let's stop that. I'm going to try, this is coming up on 2026, I'm going to try to not use that sort of words and that sort of thought process and that terminology because the people aren't stupid. I think the religion is kind of silly, but that doesn't mean the individual is stupid. And just because you're very, very smart in one aspect doesn't mean that everything you discuss that you're brilliant at. It also, we're talking about something that's been in most people's lives indoctrinated from day one. Religious people often talk about indoctrination, but come on, when you take a child, a baby, to a church and baptize them, and they've been in church pretty much every Sunday ever since, that's hard to give up, right? That's hard to overlook. It's hard to undo the stories that you're taught to be absolutely true. And going back to what I said earlier, when they kind of hold the carrot or the stick out there, you're either going to have all these rewards or you're going to be cruelly tortured forever in eternity. Those are hard to get out of your head, even if you are a brilliant whatever. You're a brilliant attorney or you're a brilliant banker or you're a brilliant doctor. You still might have that in the back of your head, and maybe you think, well, I'm not going to think too deep into it because it's going to cause me too much struggle, I guess, internally. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept those stories. Again, doesn't mean that people are stupid. It just means that they're not going to go down that road as deep as you would want them to. By the same token, those of us on the other side, are we stupid for not seeing that there's obviously a God? No, we're not. Some of us are very, very intelligent, been to all kinds of schools and everything else. We just see a lack of evidence, and that lack of evidence seems quite obvious to us. Does it make us more critical thinkers? I mean, we'd like to think so. We'd like to think that we have a more critical thinking skill, and we'd like to think we're very intelligent. But, it's just two ways of looking at it. And I'm gonna, like I said, in 2026, I'm gonna commit to not going down that road and not questioning someone's intelligence. I can still question their religion. I can question their critical thinking skills as it applies to religion, but I'm gonna not say that the person is stupid, because that's not the case. Now, does that mean there's not stupid people out there? No, not of course. Of course there are stupid people out there. They do exist, and they walk amongst us, and they vote. But the fact that someone believes in a God and believes in, say, Christianity or anything else, Islam, Hindu, whatever the case may be, Buddhist, doesn't make you stupid. That's my answer for that one. Infinite Drink 1426. This is so right up my alley. Does anyone here use theistic language? Sometimes I find myself saying, God willing, or thank God. I say this all the time. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, yep, I know exactly where they're going with this. And I've actually asked people, not because I needed any kind of clarification for myself, but I have asked people that. And it is funny. You do get kind of two sides on that from atheists. Some look at it the way I do, which is it's just language. It's just the vernacular we've grown up with. I say, oh my God, constantly. I say, good Lord, all the time, right? Good God. I mean, this is the words I say. I also say, God damn it, not to be blasphemous, right? These are just the words we've grown up with, and it's just expressions that mean zero. They mean absolutely nothing. The words themselves do not add up to any meaning. If I say, oh my God, I could say, holy spatula. Does it mean there's a holy spatula? No, but that's not what we say. We say, oh my God, right? But there are also atheists out there that have tried to rid their vocabulary of these sort of theistic words and languages so that they sort of don't betray what they see as being more purely atheist, I guess. Maybe if that's a good way of saying it. That's fine too. I mean, there's no reason I have to say, oh my God. I could choose something else. For example, I do say Gesundheit when you sneeze, but no particular reason. I think I just learned it when I was in like 7th grade, and I've just been sticking with it ever since. If that's what you want to do, if you want to pull that language out of your everyday speech, that's fine. I don't see it as a problem one way or the other. I'm usually pretty easygoing about that kind of thing because it just doesn't really matter. It is funny. Sometimes you'll get a pushback from, say, a Christian, like, oh, well, you're still using the word God. Like, well, I'm not. I mean, I am technically using the word God, but trust me, I do not have any value in the word God when I say, oh my God. I just don't. I really don't. It reminds me of that old joke about the dyslexic, agnostic insomniac. They stayed up all night wondering if there was a dog. Again, the words don't mean anything. So this is from Master 1 P5F. So Master 1 P5F. This was specifically aimed at me. This is one of these things that bothers me, and here's why. So the person says, religion is bigger than ever. You wait till every man, woman, and child is forced to get on their knees and worship the image. Well, that is not the flex you think it is, Master One. If that's, could you put it in any less threatening ways? I don't understand that. On one hand, you have this God is love and God is beautiful and all he wants is the best for you, but damn it, you are going to get on your knees and worship him. Like, okay, calm down. I mean, that's what he says. Religion is bigger than ever. You wait till every man, woman, and child is forced to get on their knees to worship the image. It's just not encouraging at all. That sounds like a dictator. It sounds like communism, what, I don't know. You tell me what it sounds like, but it doesn't sound like God is love if I'm being forced on my knees to worship. That sounds like coercion. Is there a gun to my head? I guess there's not a gun because they've got hell. It's the same principle, right? They're holding hell to my head. Yeah, that kind of talk drives me insane. It's so strange to me. First of all, it's just weird. There's this weird bloodlust sort of aspect to Christianity specifically that is odd, and I'll never fully understand it. But when you hear this kind of language, and the reason they put that out there, I did a video on how religion, there's a 3 stages of, say, religion, and we're sort of in the middle stage right now where fewer and fewer people are attending church. And it's a very long process, so don't get excited if you're on my side of this of the aisle on this one. But fewer and fewer people are attending church. That has been studied. Pew did a research study over 2025 across like 100 countries, and this is true throughout the world. 25% of the world is religiously unaffiliated. Doesn't mean that they're not religious, and that's the key. So what they're saying is fewer and fewer people are attending church. That's the beginning, right? If you're not attending church, then slowly you start to go from being a very, very important part of your day and thinking about it constantly and making decisions based on your religious belief to, yeah, you still believe in God, but you don't really attend. You don't get up early and go on a Sunday morning. The next phase of that is people just stop believing, right? So there's this sort of 3-phase thing. And that's what they're responding to, even though there are these studies. They're out there. The Pew did this research study, and if you go to atheistville.com, you can look up the study on there. I have links to it. But they're saying, no, religion is bigger than ever. Well, that's absolutely not true. It's literally not true. You're just denying the studies. But then again, wait till every man, woman, and child is forced to get on their knees to worship the image. Okay, well, it's not going to happen. So save your breath there, Master 1 P5F. It's not happening with me. All right, so this one is from Tube User, another YouTuber. I guess Tube User, YouTube, I guess, right? And they say the founding documents of the nation recognize of America. The founding documents of the nation recognize the existence of a creator as a matter of fact. The rights enshrined in the Constitution come from that creator. Self-evident truth, which seems to be beyond your grasp. All right, it's always nice to make a point and then follow it with an insult. This is how it works, man. When you have an atheist channel, the insults just fly at you from the believers, the true believers, the children of God, the ones that are trying to convince you that God is love will then always insult you. So whatever. But which is odd because I was like, I read this and he and I went back and forth a while. And then I realized, wait a second, you're talking about the Declaration of Independence that mentions the creator. I don't believe it mentions creator in the Constitution. The rights that we have in the Constitution, the rights, the Second Amendment, the freedom of speech, votes, blah, blah, blah. Those aren't given to us by a creator. The Constitution doesn't mention God, doesn't mention Jesus, doesn't mention Christianity, because the founders were very clear that the country is not based on God. That's not the way it works. But they specifically left out Christianity. They left out Jesus. They left out the Bible. They left out God. Now, back in the, late 1700s, the idea of a God was pretty universal. Didn't necessarily make it a founding principle, but that's what a lot of religious people will try to do. And he's conflating the Constitution with the Declaration of Independence. Declaration of Independence is more of a declaration of war. It's a separation. It's a Dear John letter to England that we're breaking up with you. The other is the foundation of our laws, our system of judgment, and how we conduct ourselves in the organization in which we find ourselves in. Those are really 2 different documents for completely different purposes, and trying to conflate the 2 is just wrong. And I don't know if he's conflating the 2 because he doesn't know, or he's conflating the 2 because he's trying to make a point and he doesn't have enough evidence, so he's just pulling in random bits and hoping nobody pays attention. But he and I kind of went back and forth on it, and then I just realized he's never going to give that position up. He's going to insist that the United States, as we've heard a million times, is a Christian nation, and therefore anything that's not Christian is basically not American. That's how it's always portrayed, and he's just wrong. He's just flat out wrong. But you, was he getting tube user? You're wrong. You were wrong then. You're still wrong today. Go back and actually read the documents, and read the other documents. The founding fathers did a lot of things not great, but they also did a few things right. And the separation of church and state, by definition, was built into this stuff for a reason. And they did not want to become England. That's pretty cut and dried. If you have a different opinion, I'm happy to hear it, but you better come with some extra evidence. So this person, it's funny, they actually changed their name. When I first was dealing with them, they were like Florida MMA. And I noticed I went back to copy this down so I could use it for today's show. And now they go by Jesus Never Tapped. Meaning tapped out, because they are apparently big into the MMA, the fighting thing. But I noticed their icon was the same, so it's the same guy. But I thought that was interesting. They changed their name like within a week of our discussion. And it might be because I also made a video and I mentioned them in the video, so maybe they changed their name. Who knows? I'm not going to take credit for that. But Jesus Never Tapped says that, brother, okay, apparently we're dealing with Hulk Hogan now. Brother, we both know of the existence of God. Well, no, you're wrong. Can creation exist without a creator? Can life arise from inorganic matter? Can order and design arise from non-intelligence? Again, about the 1,000th time I've heard that sort of question put to me in various ways. And the question I always go back, and I did go back with him 9 times. 9 times I ask him this question in one version or another. Let's accept his premise that can creation exist without a creator, right? Because he's saying, me as a man sitting here on a chair in an apartment building, can any of this exist without a creator? And he goes on talking about can order and design arise from non-intelligence, because they always go back to the Big Bang sort of thing, and they say, that nothing can happen without something, right? Okay. And my question to him 9 times was, if intelligence has to have an intelligent creator, then what created God? Full stop. That's the question. If everything that has intelligence, everything that has the ability that I have, has to have a creator, and that creator obviously has to be superior in order to be able to create me, and there's no other way around it, then the creator, in this case, the God that this person is referring to, must have had a creator, because something can't come from nothing, right? In one of the many different back and forths he and I had, he used that phrasing. Something can't come from nothing. Well, if something can't come from nothing, then God had to have come from something. And this is where they stop. And there's a phrase called special pleadings, and that's what they do. So they use this point. They say, okay, everything has to have a creator, and they make it so definite. Everything possibly has to have a creator. The God, the mountains and the streams and the pen on your desk and the chair you're sitting on and the car you're driving and the clouds in the sky, they have to have a creator. And you say, okay, well, great. Everything has to have a creator. What about God? Well, not that. No. Special pleading. There's an exemption for God, because that screws up the whole argument, doesn't it, right? Because if you say that, then the creator has to have a creator, then that creator would have to have a creator, on and on and on, forever, right? Infinitely. So they say there's a special pleading. That statement that they make, that everything needs to come from something, is absolutely true for everything except the thing that they don't want it to happen for. So they don't even believe their own argument. And they say, well, no, God's eternal. And they start to use all this mumbo jumbo. Okay, well, maybe I'm eternal. Maybe humans are eternal. Maybe the plants and the trees are eternal. Maybe streams are eternal. Clouds are eternal. Maybe clouds have always been here. Maybe organisms have always been here. If you can use that argument and say it's just eternal, they've always been here. If God's always been here, why can't, plants have always been here? Why can't single-cell organisms have always been here? Why? What's the difference? Special pleading. Look that up. It's exactly what this person does. And it's what everybody does when they make that argument, because they can't go back beyond God or the whole argument falls apart, right? So it's always interesting. It's a little annoying because I've heard it 1,000 times, but and this guy, what was his name again? Jesus Never Tapped, or Florida MMA originally. They're not breaking new ground with that. They always think they are. They think it's a gotcha moment, but it's just not. It's kind of a weak argument, but it's not one I haven't seen before. Bobby Hunter X8C. Bobby Hunter X8C. I'm trying to think if X8C means anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. It says, my job as a Christian to do my best to try to keep you from going to hell. Okay, Bob. Thanks. Just maybe check in with me every once in a while, make sure I'm not in hell. But thanks, man. I don't know how it became your job. That's a weird job, but alrighty. I think I responded that it's just my job to keep Christian nationalism out of my government. So if we can both agree on those, I will try not to go to hell. If you could also try to do your best to keep Christian nationalism out of the government, we'll both be happy. But thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it. And right on the heels of Bobby is Harvest N5W. God loves you. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I do. Do I believe that God loves me? No, because there's no God as far as I'm concerned. But do I appreciate what Harvest N5W is saying? Sure, why not? I will take them as sincerely as I would like to take them, which is mean that they truly think that God loves me, and they're saying that as a compliment, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay, I'm fine with that. It doesn't make any difference in my life, and it makes them feel better to tell me that. That's fine. Now, if you'll just tell me once and not 300 times, I'll be happier. So that's fine. But Harvest N5W, God loves me. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. We have 2 more questions here. And these both, because we just finished Christmas, these are both apropos. Baller Unicorn. Is that right? Baller Unicorn. I picture, a unicorn with gold chains and, I don't even want to picture. It's ridiculous. But he says, when people insist on, this is their question, when people insist on praying at dinner, do you feel that they are pushing their religion on you? I don't. I really don't. And they go on to say about, when everybody bow their head and they hold hands and stuff like that. No, I don't care. I don't care. As I've said many, many times on this show and every show, almost everyone I've ever known, everyone I've ever loved, everyone that's ever loved me has been a Christian, and prayer is part of their life. And I would drive myself insane if that bothered me to the point of refusing to participate, Now, am I going to say the prayer? No. But what does it hurt to hold hands and just bow my head and be respectful? I'm in their home. Now, the home may be my grandmother's home or my mom's home, but it's still someone's home. And if that's what they choose to do, fine. It doesn't even faze me. I mean, I've been doing it all my life, so why would I care, right? It's not like a big deal. Don't ask me to lead the prayer. That would barely be a mistake, I would be respectful, but you might not necessarily like the way it goes. But for me to just hold hands with the people on either side of me and bow my head as, my father wants to give a brief prayer, okay. I'm fine with that. What actually happens is I end up looking around the room to see who else is not paying attention, which is always kind of funny. Like, oh, there's my cousin who's not really paying attention. I wonder if I might want to have a conversation with that person, right? So, but I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. And I don't think they're forcing their religion on me. I think they're just living their lives. And as much as I want to be left alone to live my life, I really should let them live their life, again, when they're not doing anything to hurt anybody. If they're praying in their home, that is exactly what I'm asking them to do. I'm asking them to pray in their home. I'm asking them to pray at their church. What I'm asking them to not do is make my government pray. There's a big difference. I can't possibly get pissy about them doing exactly what I asked them to do. I have never asked anybody to not be religious. I don't want that at all. I mean, it'd be fine if everyone was, but I do not, first of all, I don't expect that to ever happen, but I also don't require it to happen. Pray as much as you want. Pray in private, pray in church, pray among your people. just stay out of the Senate and out of the Congress and out of the White House and out of any other place, my local city council. Stay out of those places, because that does start to infringe on my rights and my ability to live my life. But no, do what you want in your own home, and let me do what I want in my own home, and let my gay friends do what they want to do in their own home, and so on and so forth. So no, it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I am totally happy to participate to the degree that I'm going to participate, which is, again, to just hold hands and be respectful and bow my head. Same thing if I go to church for some occasion. If I'm going to go to church, someone's getting married, someone's getting divorced, or not divorced, someone's died, baptism, if I'm invited to that, I will be absolutely 100% respectful. I'm not going to walk out or pitch a fit or anything else, because I'm a grown-ass man. I'm an adult. I don't have to act like a child, even if I disagree with it. And then the final one here is from Sentient Gamer. Merry Christmas, fellow atheists. And I actually made a short on YouTube, I think on Christmas Day, in fact, saying Merry Christmas. This person goes on and says, Merry Christmas, fellow atheists. I know not everybody celebrates it, but for me, it's purely about spending time with family and friends and good food and parties and schlocky Christmas movies and making people's day with a perfect gift and Santa and, of course, the Christmas music. And it's sort of a feeling for me. It has absolutely no religious value. I 100% agree with you, Sentient Gamer. That's literally the video that I made, my short that I made on YouTube and TikTok both, which is Merry Christmas. I am an American. I've lived in America for 55 years. I celebrated Christmas every one of those years, and I like it. I like the Christmas holiday. I think it's a wonderful holiday. You get together with family and friends. Like I said, we invited 8 or 9 people over to the house to celebrate Christmas with them. I like the tree, and I like the sleigh and the Santa, and I like the songs and the red and the green, and I like all of it. It's a wonderful tradition. And you know what? It has nothing to do with Jesus if you don't want it to. So I'm a little sometimes annoyed with atheists that sort of really get pissy about it. Calm down. Calm down. Have a nice secular Christmas. You can enjoy Christmas 100% purely secular. That's fine. At the same time, if you're a believer, calm down. I know it says Christ and Christmas, fine. I don't think anything of it. Just like I said earlier, when I say, oh my God, doesn't mean God. When I say Christmas, doesn't mean Christ. What it means to me is a holiday with my family, my friends, and you get together and exchange gifts and you do all the fun things that happen. I'm totally fine with that. And I say Merry Christmas. I actually do say Happy Holidays to people I don't know, because I don't know what they are celebrating. They could be Jewish. They could be Happy Kwanzaa. They could be whatever. I don't even know. There's probably religions I don't even know that happen in that same time frame. So Happy Holidays is totally fine with me. But if I know you're a Christian, I say Merry Christmas. What's wrong with that? I don't care. I don't understand that people get pissy about it on either side. Just enjoy the holiday. I didn't get to wish you all a Merry Christmas, but I hope you had one. I hope you had a very wonderful Merry Christmas, and I hope you have and are looking forward to a great new year. 2026 is going to be a fantastic year for all of us. So until I talk to you again, this is Mike Smithgall, and this was Breakfast with the Heathen. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed that. If you have a question for me, make sure you drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, and do me a favor, like and subscribe. That really helps us out, and it helps us bring you more conversations from beyond belief. And in the meantime, take care, and remember, reason and compassion go a very long way.